when you think of 2010s or even 2000s, you had a system of architecture that was very much locked in, and any sort of new platform had to be built independently, and you have a middleware connecting data platforms. However, now things are moving much faster with Mac architecture and headless architecture. Content has to be quick for delivery. And if you have these headless systems available, you can make these choices. But in order to make these choices of the right content delivery, you need data as the foundation.
That's Syed Hussain. I'm Sean McCarthy, and this is the Lucky Orange Show. Syed is the founder of Leadpulse, which is an agency that helps modern teams build scalable, headless websites and repair the broken infrastructure that slows down growth. In this conversation, we talked about what tech debt actually is and why it's not just an engineering problem. Syed shared how headless architecture supports a faster omnichannel experience and why building your own first-party visitor activity systems is mission critical. Let's go chat with Syed Hussain from Leadpulse. I think this might be episode 45 or 46. This is probably something, the topic that we're going to talk about is something I know the least about that we've covered on this show so far. That's both exciting and challenging for me to kind of meet you in the middle, and hopefully you can dumb it down enough for somebody like me who's but a simple marketer. So I'm excited to finally meet and connect here. Tell me a little bit about Leadpulse and where your offerings fit into the market.
Amazing. Thanks, Sean, for having me. So Leadpulse is a digital tech and MarTech agency. We're based out of Toronto. We've been working with multiple marketing teams over the last 7 years now. We focus on B2B, D2C, and B2C. Really, where we see is the shift of tech and innovation is happening across the board. Historically, it was D2C and B2C essentially adapting newer technology quicker, but we're seeing the rise in B2B as well. So what do? We build headless architecture, and we'll get into headless and tech debt in a bit, but essentially simplifying websites, mobile applications, and marketing tech for marketers. We're not building for IT. Historically, monolithic architectures were, controlled by IT. So very little innovation for marketers. And so we're changing that, and the market's moving towards that. Or we have partners with quite a few organizations like Adobe, HubSpot, Contentful, Shopify as well. So a wide spectrum of technologies that we support.
I love that. I've been in too many conversations in different organizations where we've said, we don't have access to the thing we need access to on the website to be able to change it. Who do I talk to get in front of this thing? I need to make a simple change. I need to run an experiment. And so it's music to my ears to know that people who are on the leading edge are seeing that at a grander scale applied to, say, the MarTech stack, and the demands of it need to be more flexible for the different types of people involved. I think we would be remiss without going too far without applying maybe a couple definitions here. So you mentioned the phrase tech debt. Can you set a simple definition for us to operate with today, and explain how that shows up maybe in less technical terms?
Absolutely. So I get that question a lot, and it means different for different audiences. So IT will take it differently, but I'm going to say the marketing version, right? So simply put, tech debt is an accumulation of tech over time in a team or an organization that start to restrict innovation. And when you look at that from a lens of OpEx and CapEx, how much of marketing dollars are going towards a tool that was brought in a few years back, isn't serving the purpose that it was brought in for, isn't allowing the marketing team to innovate as quickly, and really hindering innovation, right? So marketers want to move fast. The markets are moving fast. And so being responsive today doesn't cut it. You've got to set those bars in the market, and are the tools working for you? I think that's our definition of tech debt, really.
Yeah. For you, against you. I know that there's a similar conversation and definition with like data debt that we apply, where it's a similar thing where decisions are made, maybe some shortcuts are taken, maybe some tools were onboarded without a plan, and then we end up in a situation where things are working against us. It feels like this, and I know we've mentioned marketing teams, technical teams. It feels like then the pain of not staying ahead of this, the pain of the debt and the pain of kind of this fog that happens would be felt across basically everybody in an organization who touches any part of the architecture. Would you say that's true? Where does this kind of show up and bubble up in the day to day for people? And they can, for anybody listening, would look around and say, I thought that we were just bad at communication, but maybe it's our tech working against us.
Absolutely. So really, it kind of bubbles up in different areas of when you think about, tech conversations or marketing conversations or even, new campaign launches. So we've spoken to multiple marketing teams and oftentimes hear this statement saying, "Oh, I can't launch a new campaign on the website. I have to file a ticket. I have to wait for a week." And then the competitor is already out in the market with some content. So you're trying to improvise content. So this really creates this process bottleneck, innovation bottleneck. And the moment you're stressing out to publish content on your website or any channel, that's a tech debt sign, really. Marketers will lose their sleep if they don't, if they don't have the systems and processes working for them, as opposed to them kind of chasing these tickets out there. Where it stems from, what we've seen is short-term planning. So you've got a very tight IT infrastructure that IT will take ages to think about or innovate, and the marketers are allowed to go and purchase tools for the short term. Be quick. Well, I was using Canva to do X, and I got this great design, but truly you needed Figma, or you needed a more advanced tool. Sometimes we've seen tools such as WordPress set up in a very, very complex architecture that was built 10 years back. I can't redesign the page because we're tied to this WordPress theme. That is just 2000s, really, not even 2010s, 2000s. And so that's the sign of a tech debt. So you can't move fast enough. You can't deliver on business goals and outcomes quickly. And as soon as you're getting into that, rhythm of getting stressed out, or, oh, we can't do this because we're limited with processes and tech, you've got to reevaluate your tech stack. Really.
Yeah. We won't be all doom and gloom on this episode. We will talk about solutions and how we can get around this and how we can and evolve past it. But I am curious, kind of baked within there, you talked about kind of like creative deployment and a marketing team being agile and then going to do stuff and interact with their infrastructure and running into issues. Would you say that tech debt also causes issues then on kind of the data and the reporting side as well when you try and maybe plug in a new reporting tool? Does it run into that side of things where teams try and optimize a page or better understand traffic sources or things like that? I know that there's a phrase that you've used, I think it's first-party visitor activity systems. That to me sounds like a lucky orange sort of tool where you're collecting your first party, your own data about your visitors. Would you say technical debt extends into that side of things when people are trying to report and optimize?
Absolutely. And again, like you mentioned previously, you have data debt, tech debt, process debt. Anything that's really stopping your progress is essentially a OpEx and CapEx debt. So when I'm going to take a step back and talk about digital experiences. I know you have a lot of data tech conversations, but when you think about digital experiences, customers today are demanding a certain kind of experience. You want to go on an app and say you have an AI agent, and instead of kind of finding your way through a website, you're talking to an AI agent. Hey, I'm looking for X type of shoes and want to see the best offers and available items over there. So content has to be quick for delivery. And if you have these headless systems available, you can make these choices. But in order to make these choices of the right content delivery, you need data as the foundation. So if you have bad data in the organization, data literacy issues in an organization, you can't action upon that. And so the tools necessary to capture these events and capture sentiment about our customers need to be connected into those digital experiences. So we're seeing increasing adoption, but also a very open architecture. Gone are the days when every enterprise is signing up with a Adobe or with a full suite monolithic architecture, and the entire suite's connected. Great, but you're tied into that. You want to be able to connect into multiple platforms. So a Mac architecture gives you the ability to connect into any sort of new age platform and digital platforms, data platforms, and make that connected choice and action upon that data, really.
And headless as a concept and as a solution isn't new to 2025. Maybe adoption is greater. This, though, the idea of taking on technical debt and running into these issues is something that I have to imagine has evolved greatly in the past handful of years. Maybe not getting to the debt itself, but the ability to solve and the paths to solutions feels like with everything, dare I say AI, but everything even beyond all that, conversation, it does feel like options that we have to solve these problems must be evolving rapidly. Are you seeing that on your side? And maybe how is that evolving the solutions that Leadpulse then brings to the table?
100%. So when you think of 2010s or even 2000s, you had a system of architecture that was very much locked in, and any sort of new platform had to be built independently, and you have a middleware connecting data platforms. However, now things are moving much faster with Mac architecture and headless architecture. You're right that this is not new. SaaS companies and SaaS products are built on the premise of headless and Mac architecture. We're just now seeing this adoption in digital, any digital avenue for customers. And this has really been accelerated since COVID times, when we saw huge rise in digital engagements. And so, of course, brick and mortar still are important sides of the business for a company, B2C company, but digital is becoming increasingly the more important avenue. And so how does this all kind of, play in terms of a change? It's changing the mindset, and IT leading with the growth opportunities that marketing sees. So it's often bringing, and I'm sure that you've kind of heard sales and marketing coming together, talking about RevOps and B2B. Well, in D2C and B2C, you've got now digital teams, which are essentially IT rebranded and with a fresh mindset, looking at the architecture and saying, well, here's the security protocol in the wrapper, but we're going to keep all systems available for integration with newer applications. So that mindset needs to change from a waterfall approach to an agile approach. And we're seeing that increasingly in the market out there. Yeah.
And so it feels like then if cross team people are feeling what we've talked about, the pain that we're feeling about, it does feel like there has to be a leader that pulls them out of there, a team to lead out of it, even though at the end of the day, there's a shared accountability of saying, okay, we have our needs, you have your needs, we have this common goal. Maybe it is united within RevOps, which I know is kind of the other pillar that Leadpulse operates. Could you tell maybe somebody listening that says, I see these signs around me, I'm feeling this pain, I do want to dig out, where should they look? And maybe along the way, I think I understand headless, but could you just also give me a quick expert succinct definition of headless? I know that when we've played with, new website platforms and stuff, it's always been an option and a conversation to have, but maybe start there and then tell me a little bit about where people should start, meetings they might even need to have, as simple as that, to say we need to dig out, aside from calling Leadpulse and having you guys solve the problems for them.
Absolutely. So when we talk about headless, really, When you think of a website, historically, a website was you've got a database, you've got a content platform that is essentially integrated into the database, requires that you set up a SQL server like a WordPress, for example, and very, very technical. So heavy reliance on development team. What headless is you're kind of splitting the content layer with the backend architecture. So they're separated out, they're decoupled. And by doing so, the content stays with the marketing team. You manage the content, build an A/B test on the website. You don't need a developer to write a piece of code or launch that in production. It's all integrated and enabled. And so the shift of mindset is really giving freedom to the marketers. And where we come in is we built these systems ground up for our customers. So helping IT simplify an architecture, building headless as an open architecture that the content layer sits with the marketing team. So it's a win-win situation. IT, it doesn't have huge overheads, and marketing loves the freedom and be able to experiment and build experiences out.
Do you think that these, we're a smaller organization. I think a lot of people here, when we talk about the conversation we've had so far, it does feel like it leans enterprise or larger scale teams. But do you think that the mindset and the principles that we're talking about can still be applied to a smaller org that may be overwhelmed with tools they've signed up for and things that mixed responsibilities, a lot of people wearing a lot of different hats? Do you think that these principles also apply there to a smaller team?
100%, 100%. And we're seeing a lot more adoption from smaller teams, actually. Enterprise, it does take a ship to move an enterprise. Whether you're kind of moving from a monolithic to decoupled architecture, sometimes takes years to kind of navigate all of the requirements. Smaller teams often have a lot going on. So, marketers are wearing multiple hats, time savings and ability to be faster with marketing campaigns is at their priority, always. So we've seen a lot of new tech adoption first from smaller teams. And the mindset remains the same. Being able to launch campaigns without calling a developer, or not stressing out about creating an event page or update A/B testing on your website. That freedom, as every marketer needs it, in our opinion, whether you're a small or large organization.
Yeah. I think that there's something really cool about the way you position this, because a lot of people approach technical problems, infrastructure problems, from a hyper technical first step, but saying, let's adjust our mindset and figure out what we need out of our infrastructure. How can it serve us? How does it need to serve us? And then we start to say, what are the technical solutions? What are the integrations we need? What is the reporting that a RevOps team needs? What levers do they need to pull? And how does this play out on a day-to-day basis when somebody like a copywriter needs to go in and click a button and adjust like down to the hyper granular stuff? It's a big problem, but it requires attention to these small details. And I'm curious then, kind of back to the second part of my other question, which is, we've seen this, we want to dig out, we think headless is the right option for us. Where do you push people? What direction do we take people in when they come to you and say, we need help? We need to take this beast on and we're ready to do it. We're ready to invest here. What are those first maybe 2 or 3 steps that they should take?
Really, step number one, when we talk to our prospects and customers and understand their use cases, what does your go-to-market look like today? And when we say, what does it look like? What are the steps? What are the teams involved? How much time is being spent on each step? And so, at this age, when you have like AI platforms like, ChatGPT as an example, you're able to produce and understand concepts very, very quickly. And there's huge AI tooling and automation available. You shouldn't be spending hours or even days for that matter, to produce a piece of content on the website. or your mobile app. And so it's really automation. Where can you automate to help relieve the time and effort involved, which really helps marketers to build out more elaborate marketing campaigns and growth opportunities and finds these cracks in the process and cracks in the tech that just help clear the growth really the growth plans. So sorry, one other thing that really when we think about agile development versus waterfall development, agile is allowing marketers to build campaigns and pages and manage content on the website just as easily as they were texting someone. So we don't want content folks to be sitting in a system and thinking, do I press this button? Do I then push a ticket to IT? And the response comes back, well, we don't have enough, capacity at this time to support. Why get too technical when you don't need to? Understanding the tech concepts is one thing, but having to live it every day, it's just reducing your productivity. So we start to kind of do an audit and we get in and understand why certain platforms were built the way it is and how do these integrate? What sort of programs were you thinking? What's the wish list? What's the wish list that's been sitting in your mind for the last 6 months to a year, but never have been able to, come to life? So we want to help propel marketing teams.
Is one of the reasons why people say we're not going to do this right now, or we're going to wait until next year, is it because they're afraid to hit pause on things and because it feels like if we're going to rethink the way 4 different teams operate with interact with our infrastructure, it's going to take a lot of time from them. So obviously they need to view this as an investment and understand the potential ROI up front. How do you work with orgs to better understand the benefits of digging out of this hole and make sure that there is that buy-in to say, we're going to add a little bit of work to our plate now to pressure test our infrastructure to say, what do we need out of it? How do we want to interact with it? Rethink these things. What does that conversation look like to overcome what I have to imagine is a fairly common objection, other than like budget to spend on things and interact with an agency, is like
Right.
the time and effort that it takes to rethink this. As much as painful as it might be to add a piece of content to the site, that's just marketers being marketers and complaining about everything. How do you get everybody on board to say, yeah, this makes sense. We see the ROI potential here.
Yeah. I think a lot of organizations, in our opinion, are leading with digital first. And when you talk about digital first, as I said, you're no longer responding to the market changes. You're actually setting standards. You're setting examples out in the market that if you want to win, you have to be better at digital. That being said, there's always a fear about change management, and always a fear about what happens if we're not able to build this, dream architecture. The answer is it's quite simpler than what we think. A lot of monolithic old architectures were built in a way that needed 5 developers from engineering dedicated for marketing teams, and they were very, very reliant on this very complex architecture that nobody understands. Whereas headless is very open architecture. It's lots of skill sets available in the market and very easily adaptable to any future roadmap that requires. And so we often lead with, where's your business going? What are the business objectives in the next couple of months or a year from now? How do you want to see your revenue grow? What's the goal? And what are you doing to get to that? And so there's obvious cost benefits with monolithic architectures. They're actually expensive to maintain, with a lot more resources, spending time and hours that are not necessary, and they're not able to contribute to better innovation. And so when you translate that, it often is a lot more expensive From a long-term perspective, sure, short-term, a little bit more pressure added and cost added, but it starts to, it starts to show benefits within the first 6 months, as we've seen with our customers. Um, and leading with marketing as opposed to an IT mindset. We're seeing that shift in our customers quite a bit. So as an example, we work with a very large automotive manufacturer, based, both for US and Canada. And so a simple example is prior to them adopting into a headless architecture, you've got vehicle offers and pricing for every part of the state or region, with multiple languages. And this process of updating that pricing was approximately 5 to 6 days in just manual work. Headless architecture, it's all automated. Takes 2 hours. And so first to market, first to activate paid media, and ads across different channels, lots of visitors jumping in before any other auto company is out in the market with their new pricing. And so there's speed to market. That's the biggest thing. Your GTM accelerates. You're essentially seeing a quick ROI in 6 months with less overheads and less OpEx. So a lot of these are very attractive to the C-suite right now. Your finance coming in and trying to cut down budgets and tools. So either you decide to stagnate and stay with the existing architecture, or you move into something that's much more affordable and easily manageable while allowing you to grow. So these conversations we've seen a lot of it this year, actually.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, clip that. It's almost like you know what you're talking about. Thank you for breaking that down. I imagine, a lot of the forward-looking marketing people out there really, really are pushing for personalization and then localization, kind of that you hit on, and both in currency and language and content itself, localizing tone and things like that. Those are definitely topics on front of mind that seem to be more in reach to make them, substantial personalization, not just this personalization like we've done for 20 years where we throw a flag on the landing page or whatever,
Yeah,
some nonsense like that, but true meaningful personalization and localization in that way. I imagine that's something that people are looking for in this when they say faster go to market, more accuracy, greater flexibility for our team. I imagine that's on the list of wants for a lot of people is we want greater personalization capability. Does what we're talking about here enable that as well?
absolutely. And I think this is what is the only path that's going to enable that at scale. Every large organization that's doing an amazing job on personalization and localization is on a very open headless architecture. And when you compare an old platform with something, of a modern age CMS, the difference really is how quickly are we responding to choices, customer choices.
Mm.
So you've got, a portfolio, a set of products that you're promoting with your ads, and very quickly, as people are clicking on different third-party platforms, the data essentially is traveling back, and you're using a permutation of multiple sets, determining what do we serve this customer. As there was a study that was recently, that I saw that said about, people are spending just under a minute determining whether on a product page whether they would like that product or not. And so of course, content plays a super important role, but the speed at which you deliver it is absolutely important, because if the page doesn't load fast enough, or if it doesn't have the right personalization, you'll never see that contact coming back on your site. And so headless platforms have now the smarter systems that allow you to build multiple segments referencing multiple third-party data, first-party data systems, and make that choice in real time in milliseconds. And guess what? Marketers don't need developers to do that. Back in the day, You would have a ticket with the developer that would take a month to go live and build with very locked down features. Oh, we're going to choose data from system A and B and marry that together, content from another system, and then make sure this is the experience. By the time that experience goes in production, it's obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your competitors moving faster. So marketers need systems where they can build these segments and be able to connect on any digital experience on the website. So that connection is what makes it's everything at scale so powerful.
Maybe the only thing faster than the marketing side coming up with new ideas for segments and experimentation would be it doing it a system that does it itself. Are you seeing any demand for fully automated solutions in this space, maybe with some percent of human interaction, or are people still wanting to be responsibly connected to what's getting delivered?
I think that's a huge debate. A couple of days back, I was at our a CMS experts community, global community conference, and this was a very big topic. We talked about how AI is changing content delivery, content choices for our customers. However, we've seen a lot of downsides to that as well.
Hmm.
So human intervention is absolutely important. AI is not there yet. The responses aren't as clean in some cases, and so even if there's 2 out of 50 bad experiences for our customers, that could actually drive negative social value
Yeah.
for your brand. And so there is human intervention involved. Nobody's talking about extreme hyper personalization, meaning one-to-one visitor personalization. We're not there yet, but you can create multiple variants within a segment. And so instead of marketers designing that, you've got AI tools now coming in and building those experiences where marketers can then go validate that. I think that's a nicer sweet spot. Um, and none of this is possible if you don't have a headless Mac architecture. Unless you're an enterprise and you buy into a full Adobe suite, which delivers this inherently. A lot of the new platforms now are that support such experiences for marketers are built on the premise of headless in Mac.
Hmm. Yeah. It does feel like the ultimate expression of the targeting and marketing that we've been doing for decades is this one-to-one thing. And while that may not be possible, I think you're right to say we're definitely in a spot now where we can be a lot more flexible and creative with the ways that we go after people. I mean, even as simple as, hey, we've got our email list and we have our SMS list and we've got a dozen segments within that, and how do they interact with each other, and we want to move people throughout our segments in real time, and we want to serve different content. We want to run a launch strategy for these new products that we have, and really orient ourselves around there. It feels like there's a lot of things that are in play now that weren't in play even a few years ago.
Yeah.
Whereas, a lot of the focus has been around, frankly, like LLM chatbots and interacting in the interface like that. On the marketing side, it feels like we might be able to at some point say, just using e-commerce as an example, this e-commerce experience is what it has been for 30 years, and it's basically the same thing. What can we do to make this more enjoyable? Like, people, sure, they come to a website with usability expectations. The thing has to be usable, but how can we personalize this to make it more engaging for the shopper or for the user? How can we make this more interesting for them, and test those ideas? And back to the main point here, you aren't going to be flexible enough to test those ideas if you can't test those ideas within 6 months. Like, if you've got this backlog of ideas, it doesn't make anybody any more money, and it doesn't make you accomplish your goals as a marketing team. So I think that's one thing that I never want to get lost in these conversations, is that the goal of this is to make the experience of using and interacting with it from the user standpoint more fun, more engaging, easier to use, more intuitive. And I think starting these conversations, like you said, with the marketing team is a really powerful place to begin.
Absolutely. And I think I did want to touch one point is it's a lot of, we know B2B is now driven by a lot of community type of discussions and conversations. How many times in the last year have you attended a webinar and decided, yes, this is the brand I want to buy into?
Mhm.
I haven't. It's probably a small ticker that that in my decision, but it's always the community. How strong is the product? How does the community love the product, and where's the future leading for that product? Um, and so the community conversations right now in marketing are starting to mature for digital experiences. And so you've got mid-sized teams, SMBs, mid-markets wanting to start to build these personalizations out because now they're competing with the large brands. And so you have to stand out. You have to build these experiences quickly. And so whether it's product bundling or whether it is to do with the actual personalization of a product background image, whatever that is, customers want to feel personal. And if your IT comes back to you and says, we can't do this, you'd have to wait for X weeks to deliver, you're too late. And so marketing is pushing, the CMO and CTO are having these intense conversations, and the CTO is now kind of coming to the table. How can I help your team, marketers, to build these experiences so we aren't stopping you from growing or delivering business goals? That's a switch. A couple of years back, it was CMOs trying to go back to the business and saying, look, here's how the markets are moving, and we need to move faster. Now, I think there's a lot more synergy with the leadership, and you have to have really that digital leader driving that change internally. So there is, I think, as much as I'm excited about the upcoming innovation with AI, you have to be pragmatic about adoption of AI tooling and build the foundations absolutely strong that you're able to stack on any AI tooling, whether it's internal or customer facing AI agents. You just can't build an AI agent if your tech stack is, legacy. So I think this is a time of transition that we're seeing with a lot of organizations.
100%. I think you mentioned earlier something about maybe like even job roles evolving and some hybrid roles. I see that in marketing where, we've got our GTM engineers now and all these new roles that pop up. Are there, when you work with businesses, do you see that happen where teams will maybe rethink how they have their roles set up even, or how they staff up to support what the new headless infrastructure and all this stuff that they adopt would be? Do you see that happening?
100%. And we always tell our customer marketing teams, once we're done with building your new architecture, if you need us to do something simple, we haven't done our job, right? It's simple as that. You don't need developers to go build this page and this experience. And so development now or engineering teams now are in a mindset that there's going to be downtimes and there's going to be peak times. And so it's much more planned from if you're a B2C organization and Black Friday is important, or, Christmas or Boxing Day is important. And these are predictable times where you're allocating resources, but only to make sure your infrastructure is running smooth, not to be kind of working 2 months before that to build an experience. No. So yes, I think there's evolution of skill set, but at the same time, you've got more opportunity for marketers to do something creative within the team. So there's better utilization of tooling and team skills, upskilling for sure as well. But overall, it adds to the company's. It shows up on budgets where you're now allocating your budgets to a, a a strong media campaign that you've been thinking about for a long time, and those dollars are better utilized.
When people spend months, it doesn't sound like it's a huge timeline to dig out of this hole and become and remove a lot of their technical debt and update their systems. I imagine then there are habits or mindsets or interactions that might allow tech debt to creep back in. So we're talking about this like we create kind of a really rosy romanticized view, and the marketers are happy and the technical team is working on the stuff that matters. But what can we do to maybe manage debt smarter or recognize it earlier once we've set a new system in place?
I get this question a lot because a CEO would on the table would ask, so great, we'll implement this great architecture, but how can we make sure that we don't have to call you back in a year again? Maybe they'll call us for better innovation projects, but we don't want to get back to the drawing board again.
Yeah.
The idea is in the mindset again that, continuous audit. So, quarterly or semi-annually, you're revisiting architecture. Is this tooling working for us or not? Is this, process that we have put in place working or not? And surprisingly, very few organizations spend enough time to rethink or audit their process, technology, to find those underlying problems. And so, yes, it's easier with headless, but a process is unique to an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important that we continue to optimize these processes and not create further bottlenecks for teams. The other thing which is very important is every SaaS company out there, every SaaS product will continue to try and sell you the entire suite of products. They have product A, product B, product C, all three integrate, everything works perfect, and this is the dream you've wanted. Do you actually need that? Are you prepared to actually ingest that into your architecture and keep it clean? So there's often, the pros and cons of weighing in the cost wise versus the true usage, because that's how tech debts accumulate. Right? We talked about this in a few minutes back, but if a product isn't utilized at its capacity and simply sitting there for a purpose that could have been solved by another product you have in your suite, then you've started the tech debt. And there's duplications, there's process issues. Person A using, Canva to design, person B uses Figma to design, and then there's communication issues, the hours lost on the project start to pile up. So it's very important that there is, I'm not saying there's gatekeeping for products and innovation, no, but I think it's an open-minded conversation around how is this going to help us over the next couple of months or a year. What business outcomes is it going to deliver? And if we can prove those, let's add it on. Let's make sure the adoption grows internally and it really supports our innovation.
I know we've hit on a couple things that have you excited, but as you look through the back half of the year and maybe in the not so distant future, what has you excited about, the opportunities in your space right now?
I think it's really the adoption of AI tooling. We're all excited. We're all also very nervous. And, there's some areas that AI is never going to, AI is never going to take anyone's job, right? Like this is a common myth and we talk about this a lot. People get nervous about it, but the truth is AI is never going to take your job. It's going to make it simple. How much simpler and by what is, I think we need to be, we need to take that with caution. The AI tooling allowing you to integrate multiple data sources, being able to build those experiences at scale and help businesses reach their outcomes very quickly, whether it's an internal tool for employees or whether it's an AI agent. I think every organization talks a lot about, technology and AI, but very little on governance. And how do you make this, governance proof? How do you make AI tooling and the outcomes of AI tooling more accessible? Accessibility has been a very big point as well. So I think there's going to be some evolution. But a lot of new research coming out is, especially from some of my colleagues in universities out there, is how the new audiences coming into the market or the newer generation, the expectations of customer experiences, the expectations on the websites and apps, and very quick to respond and AI summaries with GEO. So there is going to be a mind shift of how content is consumed, and as marketers, we need to deliver that content very, very quickly. Keep pace with innovation as well. So I think we're feeling very positive that companies are now starting to open up and make sure the architecture is ready for that shift, which is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. All my fellow marketers out there, hopefully that are listening, are excited by that too. Make our lives easier. Let the creativity run wild with some cross checks, obviously. We've covered a lot of ground. I really appreciate you carving out time to share your ideas with me today. I think this has been really, really interesting, and something that I will certainly keep an eye on too at Lucky Orange, to make sure that we're not accumulating tech debt, we're not holding people back. I mean, we're a small org, but we like to move fast, and stuff that gets in our way should be worked around. And I think taking what you've said, which is go mindset first, figure out what your actual real goals are with the tools that you're using, and how they interact with one another, is something we'll definitely take away from this. So I really appreciate it. Syed, where can people connect with you? Where can people learn about Leadpulse and connect with your solutions?
Absolutely. So leadpulse.io, and we're connected on LinkedIn. Syed Hussain, find me. I love having conversations of tech. Yes, we work with different use cases, but I think going back to the mindset of if there's a challenge, be sure to get down to the bottom of what is the actual business issue or outcome that is you're not able to accomplish because of the challenge. And happy to talk and happy to kind of learn about some other use cases that people are working on.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, Syed, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Sean.